Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. We've told you about the case of Pastor Andrew Brunson. We just received yesterday a 62-page indictment from Turkey against Pastor Brunson. Now, it's very important you understand some of the background here. Andrew Brunson is a Christian minister. He had been operating a church, the Resurrection Church, in Izmir in Turkey for 23 years. He never had an issue, never had a legal problem. He gets picked up after the coup that took place, and he gets charged with, ready for this? Here's the phrase, Christianization. That's the phrase that is actually in the indictment. Andy, you took a look at the language on it, and there is no doubt that that is what it says.
Yes, it is. It is Hristiyanlıkizm, which is a Christianization of the people. And in other words, he is basically supporting the allegation. His contention is he's supporting the coup. He's supporting the terrorist organizations that fomented the coup. He sees this as
by giving bread and water to people in a refugee camp authorized by the government.
Right, exactly correct.
But they use the phrase Christianization, so there's no question here, Jordan, what's at stake.
Yeah, this is all about the Christian faith and a fundamental change for a NATO ally to admit in a 62-page court document that is available, and as we're going through the translation process now, that the basis upon which, and this is in the summary, at the end of the 62 pages, the first paragraph is that Christianization charge. That's what Turkey is leading with. Then the government of Turkey, just to make this clear, this is the prosecutors for the government of Turkey, which is supposed to be, and technically is right now, is a NATO ally of the United States, and has brought this charge against an American citizen after he has spent over a year and a half in prison, and first detention, then in prison, and now these very serious charges up to, again, 35 years in prison.
Which he's 50 years old, effectively, till he's 85. It's basically almost like a life sentence in that sense. We wrote a book called Burning Bridges, Turkey's Return to Islamic Authoritarianism, and we don't just talk about it here, we're involved in the case. So we represent the pastor and his family. By the way, for those of you that call in today with a question or comment, we're going to send you a copy of the book, Burning Bridges. You need to get that. But again, breaking news. They are alleging that Andrew Brunson acted as an agent of, quote, unconventional warfare under the mask of being, quote, an evangelical church pastor. Then they said to advance the goals of the groups designated by the Turkish government as, quote, armed terrorist organizations by means of, quote, Christianization, using religious belief and sectarian differences to, quote, divide and separate the Turkish people. This is an ally of the United States. This is a NATO ally. Now, we know that they've gone this way. They've been going after the Orthodox Church in Turkey for centuries. This now takes it up to a whole different level where he's imprisoned and now facing formal trial. I want you to understand this, everybody that's listening. As we deal with international issues, including Turkey and their NATO ally, so-called, and they have this man in jail for Christianization. The fact that he is a Christian and that he gave, and they say it in there, material aid. You know what the material aid is? Food and water in a refugee camp authorized by the Turkish government. And then they use the word Christianization. We've got a petition for you to sign for freeing Pastor Brunson. Go to ACLJ.org for that, ACLJ.org. The petition is very clear. It's our petition to free Pastor Brunson. Also, your support of the ACLJ makes a huge difference. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Go to ACLJ.org and support the work of the ACLJ. It impacts cases in the United States and around the globe.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
So Pastor Andrew Brunson is now facing formal charges. It is a 62-page indictment in Turkey. He is charged with being a Christian. Actually, they call it Christianization. This is actually in the complaint, in the indictment. We've translated it into English. I'm going to read you a portion of this indictment to show you what this is. This guy's facing a 35-year sentence, which effectively he's 50 years old. He's been there for the rest of his life because of, quote, Christianization. Here's what they say. This is in the indictment translated. In the Christian faith, the beginning of a war called Armageddon is mentioned. This war will be broken, and the end of this great war, Jesus will descend from heaven with the sword. The Christian army will be struck behind him, and with the Christ Jesus will attack the evil ones. On the one hand, in the Middle East, there will be a deceit in the north of Israel. He will put 100,000s behind him, and there will be a battle of Armageddon between the two sides. Turkey is also mentioned, places in the north of Israel. Meanwhile, despite the fact that Turkey is particularly, and they talk about Syria and Iraq, geographical information that they give, since last year, Protestant internet sites have been showing President Tayyip Erdogan pictured and said he is Dajjal, which is, I guess, the evil one. Yeah, the devil. There are Calvinist churches, evangelical churches, Baptist churches, Southern Baptist churches, and non-Protestant Mormon churches, which have been in America for centuries. This is what they put in the complaint. They believe in elected people. They do not see any objection to disappearing because they think the people who are not connected to the church are not selected. One of the conditions of Armageddon war to be found is the presence of the 13th person who lost his faith in Christianity being widely reported to all people, and the war by the state of Israel to be initiated. This is in the indictment against a Christian pastor, Presbyterian pastor in Turkey, who happens to be an American citizen and has been there for 23 years. Now, the president of the United States has been very aggressive on this. I've been working with the president. We worked with the vice president as well. They have asked on numerous occasions, demanded the release of the pastor, Andrew Brunson. But now we have the indictment, so that reaches a whole new level here. And
I do believe the section you just read, that kind of a diatribe on the Christian faith in the United States of America and the Western world, the idea of Protestantism, Mormonism in America, the idea of Armageddon, and of course what gets mentioned in the final sentence, a war started by the state of Israel. I mean, it's got all of the key points, but for anyone who kind of sees these as unsophisticated attempts, and remember, we're reading a translation from Turkish, so if everything doesn't flow perfectly, that is why. But these are people who are sophisticated in the sense that they are studying carefully the religious systems in America, and putting together a legal case where the penalty is 35 years in prison by talking about what the books of the Bible have had for thousands of years in them. I mean, so this is, again, nothing immediately shocking to Christians or even those who are familiar, but the way it is written, of course, you've got a war by the state of Israel. You've got the end times, which means a destruction of bringing down their current president.
That's how they view
he's not going to live forever, President Erdogan, but that is kind of how he's being, if you actually read this, he's being put on a kind of I'd say a kind of equal setting or staging as a religious figure, not just figure, but as a deity of some kind. And of course, in this complaint, there's also the idea that that Pastor Brunson, with this church in Izmir, is trying to also reform Islam, also as a Marxist-Leninist. So it basically, you take the entire kitchen sink in 62 pages, and you're throwing it as pastor, but you just take parts of this, and it's very serious charges.
Andy, how do you view? I mean, we've had a lot of expertise in Turkey because we've been dealing, and as I said, we have a book called Burning Bridges, and anybody that comes on the air today, we're going to get a copy of it for you. But how do you see this? I mean, we're just translating the indictment now, but this is very serious and outrageous.
Jay, it is outrageous. It's an attack on Christianity, clearly. It's an attack trying to link a pastor who was in Turkey for a quarter of a century, serving a church in Izmir, formerly Smyrna, in the southwestern part of Turkey, trying to link him with creating a state of chaos, fomenting riots that are going to lead to earthquakes, the word that they use, planning acts of intensity, and I'm quoting now from the indictment, actions of an intensity and seriousness that they will create chaos and anxiety in society, and then the ultimate foolish allegation that the goal of Pastor Brunson, in concert with these other people, is to establish in this region a state founded on Marxist, Leninist principles and based on an ethnic structure, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But this is an attack on all Christians. And I again go back to that word, Hristiyanlaştırılmazini, which means the Christianization that which they see as the undermining of the Turkish state.
And let's go right to the phones, Logan.
All right, let's go to John in Minnesota, St. Paul, on line 3.
Hey, John.
How you doing?
Good.
You guys doing great? Okay.
Thanks.
Question, Erdogan just doesn't seem to care what the president thinks, what multiple pleas to him on Brunson's behalf are. What can we do? Can we do sanctions? Can we work through the UN on this issue?
Well, we are working through the United Nations right now. So we have made, in fact, Pastor Brunson's daughter appeared before. I think we may have that video.
I pass the floor to European Center for Law and Justice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here today on behalf of the ACLJ, who is representing my father, Pastor Andrew Brunson, the innocent United States citizen who has been wrongfully imprisoned in Turkey now for almost a year and a half, and yet he has still not been formally charged with any crime. Having grown up in Turkey, it has been hard for me to understand the situation. My family loves and respects the Turkish people, and my father has been dedicated to serving them for over 2 decades. I know the allegations against him are absurd. He is not an armed terrorist trying to overthrow any government. My father is a peaceful pastor. My family has suffered greatly during the past year and a half, which has been filled with tears and countless unanswered questions. I visited my father last August, and we sobbed the entire visit. It was hard to see him so broken, so thin, so desperate. He wrote a note last week which said, "Let it be clear, I am in prison not for anything I have done wrong, but because of who I am, a Christian pastor. I desperately miss my wife and children. Yet, I believe this to be true. It is an honor to suffer for Jesus Christ, as many have before me. My deepest thanks to all those around the world who are standing with and praying for me." Turkey should not get away with holding my father one more day. Please make any and all efforts to secure my father's release and safe return to the United States. He's been falsely imprisoned for far too long.
Pastor Brunson's daughter appeared before the United Nations. Jordan, was it the Human Rights Council? You've done that before as well.
Human Rights Council.
Explain to people what that is.
You're in a room with the ambassadors from really around the world. It's not just the member states that rotate on and off. There's 47 member states that rotate on and off the Human Rights Council, but all countries take part, and of course these countries who are, if they're being accused of wrongdoing, they're showing up as well, and you're able to reach an ambassador level of again, usually anywhere 50 plus countries in the world at one time, and oftentimes this will be the first or maybe a first time that these ambassadors have had to confront this by a person, so they no longer just getting papers and documents about all the horrible things that are happening around the world. There's obviously lots of horrible things. So you can see the overwhelming nature. You have to personalize it. And by bringing in a family member, sitting there, telling the story, you'll often see the reactions from ambassadors. Obviously, the United States has to take a lead here.
And they have.
It's a U.S. citizen. He's not a dual citizen. This is not like a situation we've dealt with in the past. This should not be like Iran. And in one sense, it's not that because we're getting these documents handed right to us. Here's the 62-page indictment. In Iran, just to get the indictment, which would usually be a page, it was smuggled out of the country and taken pictures of on phones and things like that. So you had to kind of prove the case to the world that it was legitimate. Turkey's not running away from this. They're not denying that these charges are real. they have put this into a 62-page diatribe against the Christian faith, while at this and then again trying to allege that all Christians in the world, but specifically American Christians, want to start a war with the state of Israel taking the lead. I mean, these are all the key words you would throw out in the Muslim world. You expect more from Turkey. They are not supposed to be the country that throws out the rhetoric of the kind of terrorist sponsoring states, but it's starting to sound a lot more like that when you see the key words they put in 3 sentences.
Yep.
Israel, overthrow of our government, changing Islam,
Christianization,
forcing everyone to become a Christian, and then everyone disappearing.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that, again, if you're not schooled in the Christian faith, sound very extreme. And again, all they're doing is pulling from what is in the Western world.
But they couldn't resist putting the Israel stuff in there.
No,
they can't resist putting the Christianization in there. This is a Christian pastor. He is American. He's in jail in Turkey now for almost going on, 2 years now. We're going to get up to the 2-year anniversary not too long here. Now he's been charged. I've got the indictment. The charges are Christianization. They're blaming Israel. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. And I will tell you that when we come back from the break, what the White House is doing on this, what the State Department's doing on this. As I said, the president and vice president have been very aggressive. But now we've got the charges and the indictment, so that'll take it up to a whole nother level. But, Andy, in one sense, though, as horrific as this is, we're not shocked because of the way the direction of Turkey's been.
I'm afraid to say we're not shocked, and that's the horrible thing. And, you know, Jay, when we were at Oxford and we wrote this book, we foresaw and said in our book, the burning of the bridges. In other words, Turkey has always been considered to be the bridge between East and West, but the bridge is now being burnt. In other words, this rapport between East and West, between the Islamic civilizations of the East and the Western civilizations that were founded in Byzantium and so forth, are being burned and destroyed by this dictator. Turkey has been turned into a totalitarian state. Danger.
We've got a petition for you to sign for freeing Pastor Brunson. Go to ACLJ.org for that, ACLJ.org. The petition is very clear. It's our petition to free Pastor Brunson. Also, your support of the ACLJ makes a huge difference. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Go to ACLJ.org and support the work of the ACLJ. It impacts cases in the United States and around the globe.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
So we now have the indictment, the charges against Pastor Andrew Brunson. He's in Turkey. He's been in jail now, going on 2 years now almost. Maybe not quite yet. We'll get the exact dates from CC Hall, but well over a year and a half. He's been charged with Christianization. That's the actual word, Andy, that they use, and we're going to see how many times we're giving you the actual. Look, we've got the word. It's in Turkish. We've had it translated, and this is the word they use.
It is. It's Hristiyanlaştırılmanzini, which means Christianization, which to them is anathema.
Right.
In a country, let me remind our listeners, because I'm a historian, that was the heart of the Christian empire. Anatolia, Turkey, was the heart of the Christian empire. Islamized, of course, at the fall of the empire in the 15th century, and now the crime that this country, which was the bedrock of Christianity, is accused of is being Christianized.
Yeah. So CC Hall is the senior counsel for the ACLJ. She was in meetings. People are asking, what do we do congressionally on this? What are we doing in Washington? I've briefly address the fact that the president has been fully engaged on this, as is the vice president. But you were with the ambassador on religious freedom yesterday in Washington. Because the urgency here now is this indictment's just come down. This guy's facing 35 years in jail. He's 50 years old, expected to live the rest of his life. This is really serious, and this crime of Christianization, and then they tie Israel into it. All of this is just symptomatic of the problem, that's deeper problem within Turkey. But what was the urgency sense with Ambassador Brownback?
Yes, especially that Pastor Brunson has been in jail for a year and a half, and this is the first time we've had any movement on the case. So
first time we've had charges on the case, right? He's
correct.
been pending with no charges.
Absolutely.
Now we have charges.
He has just been, held for a year and a half. So there's much urgency. The State Department understands the urgency, and they see this indictment as impetus to really move quickly. They have another working group meeting next week.
Explain the working group so people understand what this is a
Sure.
group from both the Turkish side and the U.S. side that's working on this.
It was formed at the end of last year.
What's interesting to me about this, though, is, Cece, while the working group is meeting, they come out and issue an unbelievable indictment where the guy could be in jail for 35 years. But go ahead, explain the working group.
The working group was formed at the end of the last year, and it's to work out the issues between the United States and Turkey, which, of course, Pastor Brunson is one of those that has, just driven a wedge between our relationship. So they do see this as the Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu has said multiple times that he's not going to do anything on this case until there is an indictment. So they actually see this as a move in the right direction of we actually have movement on this case, and now we can push the foreign minister to. Well, I mean,
I can understand they want to use it for a political thing, political movement here, but here's the reality. To say that this is a good development is not correct, and that they did this while the working group is in play instead of just offline diplomacy being handled. That's why you got to be very public on this right now.
Yeah, I think it's a public statement by Turkey about how they feel about the Christian faith. I think it's a turning point for Turkey, like we've talked about. It's the idea, again, they're kind of putting down in writing when they know that the world's paying attention, so they're not going to be able to do this secretly. It's not like they're not going to get reports about this. They know that they're dealing with a group like ours, with the connections that we have right now to the U.S. government, that we have to the commander-in-chief of the U.S. government, that we have the ability to reach all of you every day. I mean, you think about all those points they're putting together. I don't think that they are trying to back away from this overall messaging to their domestic audience, which unfortunately a lot of times they see these individuals who are going through these horrendous situations with these charges being leveled against them and the political pawnmanship that comes in place. But they are speaking also to Turks. They're speaking to their domestic audience, and what that message is loud and clear. They're using the term, it's Christianization, but what we've seen really is this Islamization of Turkey and this inability, and this is an issue in the Islamic world that Turkey recognized of an issue that Islam has, but I don't think that we've always seen with Christianity, is the idea that there is no religion without politics. That your religion is all politics and vice versa. It's all about conquering with physical armies, not spiritual, physical armies, physical warfare, and the idea, again, of this nation being overthrown by religious upheaval. It's a different understanding of how we see religious faith in what is supposed to be the Western world.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and take another phone call, Logan.
Yeah, let's go to Annetta in Burbank, Illinois, line 2.
Hi, Annetta, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I have a few questions. I just heard that our government is very involved in this, but us as a Christians, what can we do? And also, what is the UN doing about
Well, the UN Human Rights Rapporteurs involved. Let Cece address that in a moment. But we have a petition up, which I encourage people to sign at ACLJ.org. I think there's over 430,000 signatures to this right now. And the more that we get on there, the better. I mean, some of these cases, we've gotten over 1 million signatures, and that helps. You got to get world opinion, and you got to keep these things front and center. And this is we got the indictment. We were able to go front and center. So that's precisely what we've done. Now, as far as the White House involvement, I have met with the president and briefed him on this. He has made the demand of Erdogan directly as part of the process of what happens. That's been publicized before. And the vice president as well. And now that we have an indictment, we'll redo that. We'll update everybody. But again, at the UN, we're already working. In fact, here was, again, the daughter of the pastor at the UN back in December.
My family loves and respects the Turkish people, and my father has been dedicated to serving them for over 2 decades. He wrote a note last week which said, "Let it be clear, I am in prison not for anything I have done wrong, but because of who I am, a Christian pastor. I desperately miss my wife and children. Yet, I believe this to be true. It is an honor to suffer for Jesus Christ, as many have before me. My deepest thanks to all those around the world who are standing with and praying for me."
There you have it. So you were there, actually, at some of these. You were just in Brussels, correct?
Yeah, in Geneva.
Yeah, so Geneva. So what happened there? I think people need to understand that are watching this broadcast right now or listening to us on radio that we are not just talking about it. We are engaging it on multiple levels internationally. So what was going on in Brussels?
We were able
Geneva?
to have very many very effective side meetings, but Pastor Brunson's daughter was able to actually make an oral presentation where she basically gave that same presentation she gave at the Helsinki Commission to all the listening representatives from all the listening world.
The Helsinki Commission is, people don't understand what that is.
Helsinki Commission is a congressional, commission that oversees issues in Turkey. And so we were able to present it there. We were able to present it at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva.
So let me summarize. The United Nations, the United States Congress, the UN both in New York and in Geneva, the European Union, the President of the United States, the Vice President, the Secretary of State, and the Ambassador of International Religious Freedom. They're all engaged. But now we have the indictment. So this is when it's for real. And Turkey is using this as a ploy. We know that. He's a pawn.
That's right. They're using him as a pawn in the game of the Islamization, in my view, of the Turkish state, because that's ultimately where Erdogan is headed here. The eradication of Christianity in Turkey. We know this from our experience in the Orthodox Church, which has been held captive since 1453. And this is now just another attack on Christianity, using this poor pastor as a pawn in the game.
Christianization is the crime in Turkey, punishable by 35 years in prison. You're 50 years old, that's still your 85. Well, that's going to do it for the broadcast today. Don't forget to sign the petition for Pastor Andrew Brunson. You could do that at aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or aclj.org, and that's to sign the petition for the release of Pastor Brunson. You can also support the work of the ACLJ. That's an easy way to do it. aclj.org. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Your support makes a big difference. aclj.org. Talk to you next week.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.